Rebellion of the Damned. Section. The Witches' Sabbat. Beginning of long quote. Satan, literally the adversary, and chief supervisor of the witches' Sabbat, symbolically represents self-realization through rebellion. The celebrant utilizes rebellion as the means by which consciousness can be moved to challenge one's own personal convictions, as well as those complacencies that inhabit the conditions of the celebrant's everyday life. Through this rebellion, a new possibility for self-realization emerges, through an introspection of one's most natural state and camaraderie with the demonic agents summoned at the witches' Sabbat. End quote. From The Witches' Sabbat, Michael Ford and Michael Riddick. Silver Star, A Journal of New Magic. Once someone had formally joined the witch cult, the next rites of passage was attendance at the regular nocturnal assemblies, the witches' Sabbat. It was said that these gatherings took place in isolated areas, preferably forests or remote mountainous areas, where witches would arrive via broomstick flight, or else by transforming themselves into animals. Once assembled, they paid homage to the devil through prayer and sacrifice. This was followed by frenzied ritual dancing, quote, in a circle but always to the left, eventually culminating in a mass sexual orgy of an indiscriminate nature. Quote, the son does not spare his mother, nor the brother his sister, nor the father his daughter. End quote. Some of these details, as bizarre as they seem, may have some basis in bastardized accounts of shamanic and animistic folk traditions that were rooted in the mountainous alpine regions. It's said that a, quote, devil's grease, or ointment, quote, consisting of bat's blood, baby's fat, and soot, was used by witches in their rituals which strengthened their communion with demonic forces and gave them, among other powers, the ability to fly. Such a grease may have actually existed. However, the components were more likely aconite, belladonna, opium, and hashish, which gave the power of hallucination and out-of-body experience, consistent with shamanistic folk practices. Some of the more sinister allegations, cannibalism, infanticide, bestiality, were part of the standard propaganda used for centuries by the Church to discredit religious opponents, Jews, Muslims, and heretical Christian sects. But there was also a political, both social and sexual, scope to this slander, which was used to criminalize the dissonant practices and nonconformist beliefs held by the rural peasantry during that period. The descriptions of the witches' Sabbat tied in elements of peasant revolt and sexual transgression, quote, portrayed both as a monstrous sexual orgy and as a subversive political gathering, with the devil instructing the witches to rebel against their masters. End quote. It's worth noting that the first descriptions of these gatherings coincided with the mass peasant rebellions of the late 14th century, when clandestine meetings were indeed taking place under the cover of night, and women were often the leading agitators. According to 19th century French historian Jules Michelet, if any such Sabbats existed at all, it was likely a folk gathering, going back to medieval times, at which peasants came together at night to perform both ancient dances and satirical farces directed against oppressive lords and priests. But as the climate of repression against the practitioners of these gatherings hardened, so did the nature of the gatherings themselves. End section.